The project for the Samurai today is I'm going to put this winch on it. So this is a used winch, obviously. The plan is to clean it up. I'm going to take out the steel cable. I've got this, it's 3/8 synthetic rope from Ranger. I'm going to try that out. I've got a new remote for it and a new Haas Fairlead. Obviously this is a Warn winch. This is the M8000, which is a pretty big winch for the Samurai. Samurai weighs just over 2,000 pounds. This has an 8,000 pound capacity. So I'm a bit concerned that it's a bit overkill. Maybe that's a good thing when it comes to winches. The downside though is that it's pretty heavy, and the Samurai is a light vehicle. Putting the weight up front probably will be a noticeable difference. That's one of the reasons that I'm switching out the steel cable with the synthetic. It'll be a little bit lighter. Hopefully that helps a bit. This whole steel bracket, I don't need this because I'll be bolting the winch straight to the bumper, that Shrockworks bumper that I put on yesterday. So basically now I'm going to disassemble all this, take the steel cable off, switch it over to the synthetic. That's something I've never done before, but it shouldn't be that hard. And we'll put everything back together. When I bought this winch used, it didn't have a remote, so I haven't tested it yet. I got this new remote. I can't remember if it was from Summit or Amazon, but it's got the new D connector, but it seems to fit into the round thing just fine. So, okay, seems to work. Kind of. It's only working one way. So I won't be using this, I don't need it for the Samurai, but it's a pretty good heavy piece of plate steel, so that'll go in the scrap bin. I'll use it for scrap for some other project down the road. So another problem with a used winch. You know, this might be the last time I buy a used winch. I've done it before, and you know, these Warn winches are expensive. Used, they're quite a bit cheaper, but you also have to put the time in to make everything right. So right now what's happening is there's a problem with one of the solenoids. So it clicks, but obviously isn't working. The opposite works fine. I've reversed these power cables here to check, and the motor does spin the other way. So I don't think it's the motor, it's just a problem in the solenoid pack. I'm struggling quite a bit to get these broken bolts out. So this one, and these bolts, they're not even actually threaded into the aluminum here, but they're so corroded in there that they won't come off. There's a nut on the back there, and I have hammered on it, I've heated it, I've drilled it, and I still have one more to do at the top. So it is incredibly stubborn. The next stop is the plasma cutter to cut it on the inside there. With careful use of the plasma cutter, I was able basically just to macerate that bolt and that nut, and that finally got it out. Alright, so the plasma cutter worked as a bailout again. So all the bolts are out. Of course, I'll be replacing that with new hardware when I mount it. And what I'll do now is I'll clean all this up, probably give it a new coat of paint, just make it look nice. And then of course the main thing is replacing these solenoids. So that's what I'll be working on next. I've gone through all the solenoids. All the solenoids actually click when you put power to them. The wiring is all correct, so now I'm trying to figure out which solenoids aren't working. So this one for sure energizes. There's a good click. Put in an ohm meter on it, and I get nothing. So this one is not completing the circuit. So this solenoid is faulty for sure, and just so you can tell, like, that is energized right now. Ohm meter shows no current flow. So I'll replace this solenoid for sure. I'll go through, I'll check all the others, and I'm thinking about just changing all of them. And as a comparison, so this solenoid is working properly. So if I energize it there and check the ohms, the ohms are less than 1, 0.5 ohms. So this solenoid is normal. I'll go through and check the other two, and so far I'm buying at least one. I took all the screws out just to check the gearing, and everything looks fine. There's lots of grease, so I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to get into this. My main purpose for taking that off was just to make sure that it was greased and that there was no obvious water intrusion, anything like that. I don't see anything wrong, so I'm going to stop there. Okay, fast forward several days. I finally have time to get back in the garage and work on this again. In the meantime, I've received a new solenoid from Warn, so I'll replace the malfunctioning solenoid in that pack there, and that should get everything working again. I'm going to start putting all this back together. One thing that I'm a bit puzzled by is on these chrome-plated bars on the winch. This one's all kind of chewed up, and that's, I think, from the steel cable that was on there before. I'm not entirely sure how that happens. Maybe it was coiled too loosely, and for whatever reason it definitely abraded. So I'm going to smooth this out and polish it down, and probably buy new ones as well, but for today anyway I'm just going to smooth it out and see if I can get it to be good enough. I definitely don't want this chafing the new synthetic rope that's going in. So the polish helped a fair amount. Hopefully that helps a bit with the corrosion resistance. If I find this starts to rust, I'm just going to replace it. But I'll put this one back on for now. I'll do the same on the other side, and we'll see how that goes. And with the new solenoid, it works like it should. So things to do now is to put the new rope on and to mount it to the Samurai and get it wired up. Here I have the winch just mocked up in place. It fits really well, so this is the Warn M8000. And this Shrockworks bumper looks like it's basically made to fit this Warn M8000 winch. This offset is just about right. I'm very happy with how that fits. It looks pretty good. So I'm going to bolt that in. This is the bracket for the solenoid pack. And I'm going to bring this over the top, I think. So I'm going to bend that and see if I can get that to tuck in real close. So now I've got the winch fully mounted. It's secure. I put a spacer in there and I angled that bracket, and that way I'm able to mount the solenoid pack up top. So that's kind of an unorthodox way to do it. And the reason that I'm mounting it this way is because I have a cover for it. I think it's off a VX series Warn winch, and that's where basically the electronics are on that series winch. But it's a pretty nice looking cover, so I'm hoping I'll be able to make it work on this winch. How'd that happen? That does it for the wiring. Pretty simple. Obviously lots of space on a Samurai, so that works out well. Now the winch is totally done. So what I'll do is I'll put the new line on. Finish this project up. This is the Ranger 3/8 synthetic rope. I chose this one because it's a pretty low cost option. It's quite a bit cheaper than the Warn brand. And I don't know, it looks pretty good. We'll see how it goes. Came with this clevis, and I also got this rubber stopper that will go on the fair lead. So there we go. The rope's all in. It looks pretty good. I think I probably should wind it a bit tighter. That'll give me a bit more space just to get it all to fit on the spool there. It's pretty close to clearance, but I think it'll be okay. So this project is done. I'm happy how it is. Next step is to get this Samurai on some trails. I have other things that I'm going to do to it coming up. I'm going to do a roll cage. I'm going to put a new stereo in it. And this winter I might do a full motor swap with the 1.6. But for now, it's time to get it out and play with it.